Welcome to FEI TV. Delighted to be with you for what is the final leg of the Western European League World Cup. We are in the Netherlands. It is the Indoor Brabant Horse Show, 's-Hertogenbosch. It is where we once again will stride our way to the final standings on the Western European League. It has been another quite phenomenal season, and what an event that has so traditionally brought the Western European League to a conclusion. It is Grand Prix Day. The freestyle is the final points, of course, will be handed out tomorrow, and it is so important for so many to ensure they've got the right scores to pick up the right points to be heading to Fort Worth in Texas next month for that final. It's been an amazing journey, and this always gives us a grandstand finish. Over the years, we've seen some magnificent performances and some great names in horses, from the likes of Bonfire and Cilieno to Sachmo and Emilio, to the likes of Parseval, and in more recent times, of course, to the likes of Glamourdale, that have all taken wins in this famous arena. Who will this year? We will find out. But we have the top of the table as things stand, Larissa Pauluis, and she is here this week with Flambeau, the world number 6. Also with us is Rafael Netz, Justin Verwimp, the world number 1, and Marieke van der Putten, of course, wanting to put points up there to secure their place in the top 10 and ensure they qualify, as is Thamar Zweistra.
But best of luck. And to all of you spectators with us here today in the Brabant Hallen, we hope you're going to have a great time here experiencing fantastic sport.
Of course, be key to trying to make sure they've got the right points to see if they can push their way in to the qualifying places.
We're very grateful indeed as well to our presenting sponsor, RS2 Dressage, respectful standing to dressage, ambitious with the aim of achieving exceptional performance in both sports and breeding, with a strong focus at the same time.
Job they have to award the marks. At E, it is Sven Gunther Rottenberger from the Netherlands. At H is Christian. The Grand Prix sits at C from Sweden, Marcus Ringmark. At M is Germany's Elke Elbert. And at B, it is Martin van der Heijden from the Netherlands. The experience that they bring is quite something, and a phenomenal lineup of international members of our ground jury for today. But of course, there's a phenomenal lineup of international horses and riders to be heading down that centre line. As I said, there's a whole host of star names here. We've got 3 of the world's top 6, in fact 4 out of the world's top 10 if I get it right there. But of course, there's plenty with lots to consider trying to look into tomorrow. And it always plays to the benefit, of course, if you can get a good Grand Prix test. One, of course, it ensures your position and place coming forward tomorrow, but importantly, it will set you up. From Morocco, Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, Poland, all involved. The keys there, of course, Verwimp, Jedi Damaso has been consistent this year. Inevitably, it is when you move, though, into the second half of the draw, you start to see some of the more familiar names. And there we have it, 18th to go, the world. But also Glamourdale back to try and win for a third time in 4 years here. With the reigning champion from the Lottie World Cup bepaald gaat worden voor de Kuurop-muziek die morgen plaatsvindt. Basel 12 months ago. We are just about set to get things started, and what a way to begin with a rider actually that's got some happy memories. He said his best ever freestyle result here back in 2022 on a horse called All at Once.
It's going to be 3-time Moroccan Olympian Yessin Rahmouni. Yessin with the KWPN 11-year-old Kind of Magic. Kind of Magic is course for Yessin,
Olympic rider
of Kind of Magic, and a podium finish for this pair recently in the International at Azelhof Leer in Belgium.
First having competed at those games back in London in 2012. He went to Tokyo and Paris. He's ridden at World Championships and qualified for the World Cup final back in 2022. The ride that he has here today is stepping up. First time in a 5-star Grand Prix. The 11-year-old gelding is by All at Once, that sire that, of course, was so successful with Yessin and taking him to such great heights. It's out of a jazz mare, this Dutch gelding, so far in the Grand Prix tests that they have competed in, of which there are only 2. Their best score was 68%, which came back earlier this year. Graphic, the marks coming through. We're seeing the average of the scores as ever from the 5 judges. I suspect they were the whole score. It was quite a short hold. Just to create a little bit more energy, a little bit more fluency as well in these half passes. It was quite a nice halt and rain bank, and maybe they would have asked, just maybe wanting to see maybe just a little bit more fluency and directness in that forward transition, of course, into the trot. Really settled and consistent, perhaps occasionally wanting it to be a little bit more fluent in the transitions of the passage and pied. So let's see a little bit more elevation. I'm not sure there were enough steps completed in the piaffe either. Been a very consistent test from the make sure they keep those changes nice and straight, nice and through, allow the horse to move over the back. pirouette looking a little bit better to the right. It's a little bit tight in front. Feels certainly saving their best piaffe and passage for this final centre line. What a way to start for them. I mean, I don't think he could be any prouder or any happier of the performance there for Kind of Magic for their debut here at this level. Together, Yessin, Rahmouni, of course, with a tremendous amount of experience in the sport, but he's used that experience to ride a really wonderful test today. You can't really, there's nothing there that was an obvious mistake. Of course, he'll have always been hoping to pick up more in terms of the scores, and that'll come as they progress, I'm sure. But I mean, overall, I think you need to maybe have hope for a little bit more engagement and connection from behind, but the horse has got what it needs and certainly got the talent when it comes to piaffe and passage, as much as you're going to want more suppleness there in the future. There's plenty to work on, but as a combination, it's their best score together. That combined set of marks from our 5 judges, and all pretty even when you look across there as well. 67.848 to get things underway. I mean, it's a really capable horse. Lovely to see. So, Yessin, Morocco. And I think he'll be hoping that's enough to ensure that we see him back in the freestyle. And that lovely story, the fact that it's by the sire, as I say, all at once. A ride that took him to those championships over the years. Smiles all round as we move on.
You can also participate in spectator judging. Spectator score for yes.
Of course, this is the first real day of the big competitions, both dressage and jumping taking place, and freestyle day here is tomorrow afternoon, similar sort of time for those of you looking to enjoy the freestyle to music, but it's always, it's a massive moment to been again an amazing season on the West. From Morocco to Greece for the next to come forward as people continue to find their seats between rides. You can see Theodora Livanos out there at the moment, just getting set to start. Riding Robin Vale. Theodora, the 25-year-old from Greece, has already been competing on the World Cup circuit this year, having competed both in Amsterdam and in Neumünster. She's been a hugely successful rider coming up through the ranks, both ponies, juniors, more recently with the under-25s. Robin Vale, who was very successful in the past with Brigitte Wintz. This gelding now 19 years of age by Rubiniero 2 out of a Wittingham. In Neumünster last month, their Grand Prix score was a 67.413. half passes that they just ensure they're fluent and maybe just want to be a little bit more parallel to the side of the arena. Necessarily would have said that was the smoothest of rhythms. It didn't really seem to extend, wanted more energy in that extended trot. Again, sadly, the walk just not as regular or as in rhythm as the judges will have been looking for. You can see that mark coming up in the extended walk. Of course, I think it would have also affected the transition mark that comes after the collected walk. It has looked pretty settled though in both sets of piaffe and passage that we've seen so far. There was a mistake there. One of those changes a little late behind. And just losing a little bit of that sort of lift and jump and activity through the first of the pirouettes. Similarly through that second pirouette to the right, just unable to keep that clear rhythm. Again, the extended trots both times today just haven't really been able to flow. They just never quite covered the ground. They've never really looked as even as they should. Finishing things off there with Robin Vale for Greece. That was the 25-year-old Greek rider. Theodora, Livanos. Waiting for those scores to come through. I think it's not going to reach the heights that they did in the Grand Prix last time round in Neumünster. I think looking back, probably just a little bit more like we saw score-wise from them in Amsterdam. I mean, there was a level of fluency through the test, and I mean, the horse he's a lovely horse, isn't he? I mean, he's really out there and enjoying himself. He's got that sort of willingness to get on and really work. But I just think today there was just too many moments where the balance, certainly in that extended trot, was really noticeably just not quite right. And again, some problems with the rhythm in the walk. And those sort of, we saw within the scores, points that really count against you when it comes to picking up those extra marks, and I think we saw that. So obviously there is more in there, but just today, unfortunately, unable to bring a bigger score together. It is a final mark of 65.130. 65.130. Another young jockey, 24 years of age this time round. The next up rides for Denmark and has been a multiple part medal-winning teams at the under-25 level at Europeans with this horse in recent years. Dionysus is the name of the ride. The rider is Thea Bech. Thea and this partner have been very successful together. They have a best Grand Prix result of 72.333%. Their average at Grand Prix is a 68.8. Now, stepping in to the World Cup arena and looking forward to seeing how they progress, stepping up through the levels here this year. He's a hugely experienced gelding by Spielberg out of a Sir Sinclair mare. Competed in the 3-star here last March. Step up in to the 5-star competition, which I think is their first time. Wants to be a little bit more careful with the balance coming into the collected trot. And maybe just a bit rushed through that halt, wasn't necessarily square. Test just looked a little bit hurried in places so far. good rhythm in the piaffe, though. Nice through the transition. Again, the passage and piaffe both looking very good. Again, like to see just that little bit more stretch, a little bit more ground cover. Perhaps just a little bit more activity in the collected walk. And they'll inevitably not get the mark they will have wanted. It is such a difficult transition there from the walk to the passage, but there was just that little moment of tension you could see as she put her leg on. Again, very good rhythm though through the piaffe and the passage. Certainly a lovely little pat, just a reassuring moment between the two of them. Need to again ensure they keep that nice clean and clear rhythm through all their movements. Looking pretty established and confident in the piaffe. I think the transition again improving a little bit from what we saw earlier. A little bit hurried occasionally in the passage towards the end, but apart from that, again, you know, she'll be delighted with the way that test has gone. Said at the beginning it looked a little bit hurried, I mean, but apart from that, actually, you know, there was the two obvious moments, that little bit of tension in the transition from the collected walk to the passage, and then of course there was that little moment where they were a bit disunited in that change at X when they were between the pirouettes. But again, you could see how the scores were coming through, and it was all looking pretty consistent. And I mean, again, it's such a capable horse, and you can see how well the two of them get on together, and already there's the score. It's just under 1% off their best, actually, so they should be very pleased with today. 67.326%, 67.326. Again, pretty consistent scoring from the judges. I think sometimes you just like to see maybe a little bit more lift, all-round suppleness, and, you know, you create that cadence, don't you, and that impulsion. It all just sort of comes together and would lift everything completely. But like I said, I think as a combination together today, they've put together a very nice performance from them both. And like I said, looking back, I can't see that. I don't think the two of them competed in this at this level. So what a start for the partnership, and I think that's pretty happy with that. So she does indeed go into second, as JK mentions. Yessin Rahmouni, Kind of Magic, still leads the way. I think Yessin will sit there for at least a little while longer. We'll see. We're going to, in a moment, move our attention to the first of the Dutch riders competing today, and always a big moment for them when they are competing at home, especially here, of course, the second trip in as many months to the Netherlands on the Western European League with Amsterdam back at the end of January, and now can't believe this season has just flown along since we were in Herning in October for the first leg. Well, here comes Dominique Filion. Of course, no stranger to the World Cup circuit. We've seen her with the boss a few times over the course of this season in Stuttgart as well as in Barcelona. Big 5-star with the boss, but this is a horse that we haven't seen on the Western European League before, stepping up into 5-star competition here today. Dominique's 11-year-old mare, Dutch mare by Glocks Toto JR, is out of a Jazz mare. Has picked up a best score in a Grand Prix that came in Lier earlier in the year of 69.261%. They did go to Salzburg back end of last year as well, and just been gradually, that was their first Grand Prix test in Salzburg last year, so I mentioned it, but they, 67.652 on debut and stepping up again in Lier in that 4-star last month, and having already started with a very nice sort of early set of movements through the extended trot. Doing a nice job as well, keeping things parallel through the pass, the half pass. Maybe just a little bit untidy, just again losing that connection slightly through the rein back. Yeah, I think it was a case of rhythm again. I'm not sure that there were all the steps as well in there. Just need to be careful. Again, they really rhythm and fluency, I feel, is sometimes the element that works against them. Quite a nice extended walk though. It really does look to stretch out. KJ Diva Corita Texel. Up a little bit as they came back into the collected walk, but a nice transition into the passage. Much better in the PF this time. Did a good job through the two-time changes. Pretty settled actually in the canter work. You can see that as well coming through in the marks. It's a shame in the half passes, yeah, that's a little bit of tension which just sort of didn't allow them to completely keep the jump perhaps. Looking good though through the one-time tempi changes. Again, just losing that lift and jump in the pirouettes. And just to remember, first time for these two together at this level. Dominique, who has a wonderful horse, the Boss, certainly has another star with KHA Diva, Corita TXL as part of her team. And that's great news for both her and for Dutch Dressage as well. That lovely mare by Glock's Toto JR, delivering a solid performance today, all round. You go back through it, there isn't really anything you can, as I say, I got a little bit tense in that series of half passes, the zigzag line with the changes. But sometimes I guess the tension could be alleviated with preparation. Either way, overall, a wonderfully talented partnership, a horse that really did listen to what her rider had to. Of course, you were able to work together, and you could see how Dominique was really making sure she guided her mare in the right way. And she's been rewarded, actually, with a solid score. And it's actually only 0.3 off their best in the Grand Prix, as I've mentioned, came in the 4-star in Lear. For a first 5-star score in a Grand Prix, 67.348% across the lineup of judges. So another top performance from them, and another, you know, going forward into this year, it's a horse that can just add to the scores again. Just you saw in the pirouettes there, occasionally just losing that little bit of lift towards the end. Either way, I think second place is a very though, with Kind of Magic, and his score is 67.848, just enough to keep him in front of that mark of Dominique Villen's 67.348. That couldn't have really been much tighter, with Thea Bech on 67.326, but nobody yet through the 70% mark. Now we stay with the Dutch. Geert-Jan Raateland now, with the Totelas Gelding Gladiator, out of a Havidoff mare, this 15-year-old Dutch gelding. And it's a combination that have previously, in a Grand Prix, scored as high as 70.761%. We saw them together in Herning, in Stuttgart and in Mechelen, although in fairness, in Stuttgart they didn't get through they didn't come through to the freestyle. But top 10 performance in Herning. I think I'm pretty impressed, pretty happy with the way that centre line started off, and it's always a lot easier if you get a good opening line. Good halt. A little bit tight at points. Again, it was a good halt. Just perhaps a little bit more diagonal needed at the beginning, just to allow that rein back to be just a little bit more through. And again, even in the extended trot, seen both times now, just you'd like to see just a little bit more ground cover, just to allow that energy to really lift the front power up from behind. Consistent through both Piaffe and Passage. Good transitions as well as they come into the extended walk. Again, I think ultimately you're looking for a little bit more stretch, but been a pretty solid start to the test from the two of them. Tightening up a little bit there in the collected walk. Nice transition. Shame in the Piaffe, of course, they lost that bit of rhythm in the middle, but again, just you saw as they moved into the collected canter, there was again just that little bit of a mistake in the transition. I think they just sort of went off on the wrong lead to start with and then had to, well, Geert making that very quick correction. Just again, just throughout the movements, and he's doing a good job. But I just love to see they just sometimes just look a little bit tense, and just occasionally like to just see Gladiator just relaxing a little bit more into the movements, just allow for a little bit more fluency throughout the test. I think that might just create a little bit more suppleness in the way that they're performing. Again, just want to see more from the extended trot. Gladiator occasionally just look that little bit constrained, and sure Geert, though, has been very careful to make sure. I mean, he's written a very accurate test in terms of making sure that it's been, I mean, predominantly mistake-free, apart from that little moment where he slightly took off onto the wrong lead, but he made such a quick correction. Nice halt to finish as well. Good start, good finish, and plenty to enjoy in the middle as well for Geert-Jan Raateland and Gladiator, and that was trending very much towards the top of the board in terms of the scores, so we'll see exactly where that positions him, but I have a feeling that should push him towards the top. Whether he's, I don't know that it'll be enough to get through the 70% mark, but we'll see. There's a horse with power, it's a horse with energy, and there is plenty there. As I say, very accurately ridden test, and you can see how, you know, Gladiator looked to try and work with him. It's just feel again as just a little bit more suppleness. A little bit will allow for perhaps just a little bit more expression of movement. So if they can get that suppleness over the top line, especially in the canter, I think really would lift the whole performance, and of course inevitably lift the score as well. Not a bad score though, and it is a new leading score from our panel of 5 judges. It comes to a final total of 69.326%, so 69.326 for Gladiator and Geert-Jan Raateland. Be pretty pleased with that.
Gladiator for the Netherlands with a spectator judging score of 69.337. You also have him as your leader,
certainly a horse with a big ability.
70% today here in the Brabant Halland.
Plenty more to go. Far from done, although we'll take a pause from the Netherlands, because now it's Poland's turn. It's the turn of Hubert Jerinski, riding here with Weggelaar, the mare by Blue Horse Hotline. She's out of a painted black mare, this 15-year-old Dutch mare. Together, this combination have scored in a Grand Prix test together 67.935. Came in Compiègne last May. We've seen them already in Mechelen back at the end of the year, where they came in the Grand Prix with a score of 67.543 on that occasion. It's only their second appearance on the World Cup circuit. Of course, it was their Mechlin was their second 5-star event after Compiègne last year. Just wants to be sure they don't hurry through these early movements and allow the horse just to show that nice clear cadence and fluency. I think they had a good rhythm in the passage. Maybe just wanted to look a little bit lighter in front in the piaffe. I think the extended walk potentially, the judges will have wanted just to see a little bit again of a clearer rhythm through the whole body in that extended walk, and then perhaps just be a little bit clearer in that rhythm when they go into the collected walk. I'm not sure that there wasn't a mistake within that half passes with the counting on that little mistake on one of the changes early on. Better in the one-time changes. Also, I think they had a little error in the two-time changes. Again, they just would like to see a little bit more freedom and straightness. Just want to be careful they don't rush out of the pirouettes. Allow the horse just to take the weight, keep the balance, let that sort of uphill tendency, that lift, that jump really show that the weight can be taken behind. Just not necessarily been as fluent as the judges will have ultimately wanted through perhaps the transitions, but Hubert, Jerinski there. Geert-Jan, the Polish partnership, trending around about that 65-66% mark for the pairing then. There were definitely a couple of little moments in the canter where there were a couple of mistakes, both in the two-ton changes and in the canter half passes on the centre line. But again, I mean, ridden a test with plenty to enjoy, plenty to like, but it just didn't seem to have that fluency that, again, they needed. And again, suppleness, you're looking just to see if that suppleness and that ability to sort of take the weight can really help improve the rhythm. 65, 804 is certainly an elegant horse, and it's well ridden as well. He's a very good rider, is Hubert. Pretty even though from the panel. 65.804 puts them into fifth place for the moment. 3 more before we get to the halfway mark. This is quite a phenomenal field here today. I couldn't believe it when I realised about 18 of them. We really are blessed, but it is one of the special ones in terms of what goes on here this week. And it's such an important marker, both for the riders looking to go to the World Cup finals next month, but also with such a big year and season ahead, it can really sort of finish your indoor campaign, but set you up for quite an amazing season over the weeks and months ahead. And of course, it's a big year with it being a World Championship year. Now we are back with the Dutch. What a big year it was for this rider last year. She's only 22. And last year she made her first senior Dutch appearance on the team at the European Championships in Coizet in France. With this ride, the team, of course, went on to finish 5th. She herself 31st in the order by the end of it all. We've seen these two coming up through the ranks in juniors, young riders. You know, it's a partnership that have been part of medal-winning teams. And together in a Grand Prix, they scored, I think, 70.598 in Hubert last year. Was the best score for them so far. It is Rowena Weggelaar riding Donkey Show, a European Championship partner, the 18-year-old Dutch gelding by United out of an IPS Grabbaldi mare. Been quite a nice start to this test. Really looks to be on their mark. There's a lovely presence about these two in the arena. Maybe just a little bit rushed from the halt into the rein back. I'm not sure how square that halt was, but it was all quite quick. Again, doing a really tidy set of movements through the passage and the piaffe. Good transitions. Judges will have hoped just for a little bit more relaxation through that extended walk. All intention just creeping in, whether that was just catching their eye, just spooking a little bit, unfortunately, in the collected walk. Seems to have settled very quickly, reassured by Rowena. Doing a really nice job through those two-time changes. Looked like they had good lift and they were nice and straight. Really happy to take a bit of risk as she comes round into that extended canter. I think perhaps they still like to see a little bit more. Looking very good through the one-time temperature. A little bit more forwardness, a little bit more energy, just to allow them to cover the ground a little bit more. Very well controlled test so far. Needs to be nice and clear coming out of the pirouette. Show a good change though at X. Looked to be a very good final line as well in terms of the passage, the piaffe. The final halt looked pretty impressive as well. Whether they're quite with their PB, 69.891, I mean, they were trending over 69% in terms of the scores, and they certainly have helped themselves no end by putting together a really impressive final line. The 22-year-old Dutch European rider the championships last year. And of course, with it being a World Championship year, there's a lot to think about going in to the year ahead as everybody sets themselves on a path they hope to be part of their teams come August. So just waiting for that score for Rowena Weggelaar. Here it comes. It's not far off their PB. 69.457 to take the lead. Well done. Their previous best is a 69.891, so they weren't hugely far off that. And that new leading score puts them ahead of Geert-Jan Raateland, who scored 69.326. Rowena Weggelaar and Don Quixote going into the lead on 69.457. So the Netherlands now 1 and 2, Morocco in third. Two nations to come before the break. 1 for Belgium and 1 for the Swiss. Very happy team there. Sure, there'll be plenty of carrots later. Right, next to go, we have Belgium's Verwimp riding Jedi Dumassa. Hugely experienced rider from Belgium. And what a horse this has been over the year. It's a horse that's got better and better, this 12-year-old by Don Juan de Hus. Ended up with their best Grand Prix score coming in Aachen, though, which was in the April event last year when they scored 70.65. Amsterdam, Mechelen, they were 6th in the Grand Prix in Mechelen back prior to the new year. Got a top 10 finish in the Grand Prix in Stuttgart as well. So that new leading score is 69.457. Verwimp. Tremendously popular and experienced rider from Belgium with his lovely Jedi Dumassa. 12-year-old by Don Juan de Hus. Out of a galloping de la Font mare. Settling into this test quite well, just need to be careful they keep the contact nice and steady in the half pass. Certainly the extended trot was nice, though. Bringing together, you can see the rein-back score. Yes, that's a little bit down, but then they sort of step back slightly into the hold. But they seem to be delivering some very good, impressive extended trot marks, and now really showing a lot of consistency in the delivery of the paces. perhaps wanted to be able to demonstrate a little bit clearer in terms of the paces through the extended and the collected walk. Again, just make sure they're nice and clear coming into the passage. But overall, again, really confident in their piaffe. It's got a really nice rhythm, it's nicely on the spot, it looks really good. Good transitions as well. Just now need to keep things nice and relaxed in the canter work. It's lovely to see the way these two have just really improved their consistency and their overall abilities together. Such a tremendous partnership over the last 12 months. It's really, again, just showing the understanding that they've built. Just a little bit of tension at the start of that pirouette to the right, but certainly going to be one of the better tests the two of them have delivered with their scores. Getting ever closer to 70%. It's been pushing very consistently with those sevens that we've seen coming through on the marks. It was a nice extended trot as well. Belgium are certainly not short of stars in the world of dressage, but this man has been part of Belgium's dressage fraternity for decades, and he still produces the goods time and time again. And he's always a pleasure to watch, and you can see how happy everybody is, and so they should. I mean, it's without doubt one of the best that those two have been able to deliver. I mean, I'm not... It looked so clean everywhere from start to finish. From memory, see anything there that really stood out as an error, and the consistency was there. I mean, okay, sevens all the way, but do that and you score over 70% and you lead the way, and that is a new personal best score for them. 70.587%. Verwimp, Jedi de Massa. They have been on a journey over the last 12 months, a journey that is just taking them to greater and greater heights. So, I mean, the improvement has just been so nice to watch, and it is such a lovely horse, and it's a horse that shows that elasticity within the movement. Sometimes, yes, you want to see just a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more uphill. But, you know, Jedi really works with Vim, and together that allows them to put together such an amazing performance. So we have a new leader with over 70%. We have a score now as a PB, which is always exciting. And next to go, taking us into the break, is the Swiss rider Charlotte Rogerson and Bonnier de la Vie. So this gelding by Bordeaux 28 is 14 years of age, out of a blue horse, Zach mare. Charlotte's ride in Croisset, rode as an individual at the European Championships last year. Their best Grand Prix score is a 72.826, although that came a few years ago in Mannheim. Their average in the Grand Prix is still a 70+%, 70.4. We saw them in Basel on the World Cup circuit, second that day in the Grand Prix. They went on to, of course, finish second in the freestyle as well, back in the beginning of 2026. It started strongly. And where are they now? They had a very good winter. They rode in the 4-star in Stuttgart. They won the special there. But certainly be hoping for a solid outing here today. Of course, that score, it's a brilliant position to finish second in the freestyle, but it's been their only score on the World Cup circuit this season, so it's not one of the combinations in contention for qualification. But again, you can see how the level has just stepped up slightly yet again in the fluency and consistency. Really soft and elegant. It was a shame in the rein back. There's a little bit of hesitation. But again, they developed that extended trot really well, and really good through the passage and the BF. A very impressive test so far from this partnership. Careful they don't go too fast into that collected canter. Don't want to lose the quality of the canter. Ooh. Not sure there wasn't a little bit of miscounting going on. Unfortunately, the mistakes cropping up in the two-time changes. Getting a little carried away with some tempi changes. Much better through the half pass and the zigzag line. Looking brilliant through the one-time tempi changes. It's going to be such a shame that line of twos that went a little bit wrong on them. A little bit of tension in that change in the middle. It's a combination that really enjoy the opportunity to perform. And once again, as we saw in Basel in January, we see again here in Bosch. A lovely showing from Charlotte Rogerson and Bonheur de la Vie. It's really smooth and a combination that really have a lot of harmony in the way. I mean, the horse is just so elegant and so wonderfully smooth through the movements. Such a lovely horse, and she does such a great job with Bonheur de la Vie. And together, they lead the way going into the break, 71.631%. What a shame it was for the two-time changes, because the one-time changes were brilliant. I mean, we saw the mark come up on the screen. It was an 8, so that's obvious. All the judges then gave an 8. But again, apart from that, it was a test that was delivering a really high standard. And I have a feeling as we come back in the second half of this Grand Prix competition that the standard will continue to increase all the way through to the last to go, when the world number one comes in and joins us. But yeah, really well presented test from those two today, and the presentation is so important. Keep hitting your marker. More and more people continue to arrive as well here today, because they're looking forward to what is to come. And I'm sure we are in for something quite exciting once we come back in the second half. But at the moment, that test is the leading test. It is the Swiss out in front, ahead of Belgium and the Netherlands, the 1, 2, 3 in terms of nations. And we've already seen a combination best and a personal best within the lineup of scores so far. So 9 have gone and 9 still to go, but it is Charlotte Rogerson that leads the way on 71.631 at the moment, ahead of Verwimp and Jedi de Massa. Third place, Rowena, Weggelaar and Don Quixo. That is the 1, 2, 3. But as I've said, there's plenty more to go with a total of 18, so we're only halfway there. And it is those perhaps bigger names, those certainly ranked higher. Well, 4 of the world's top 10, including, as I've mentioned, the world number 1, the world number 3, the reigning holder of the World Cup, the European champion, the leader of the current Western European League standings, is all in the second half of the draw for this FEI Dressage World Cup Grand Prix. And of course, this is just the the appetizer for the big class tomorrow, the freestyle, the last chance to put points on the board to ensure you've got that qualification to go to the final for the FEI Dressage World Cup, which will take place in Fort Worth in Texas next month. So this is the last big chance for many of those, and we will see how it all pans out. We'll be back with the second half very, very soon. Welcome back, and here is who's still to come. We are live with you at the FEI Dressage World Cup's final leg of the Western European League in Bosch. And it's led at the moment, the Grand Prix test here on this Friday afternoon by Charlotte Rogerson and Bonnet de la Vie for Switzerland. Their leading score is 71.631%. Plenty of big names and star partnerships left in the final 9, though. And we now have another for the Netherlands and a rider that will be looking to ensure they do their best tomorrow to pick up a decent helping of points, because sitting 9th on the Western European League is Thamar, and she's looking to go back to the World Cup final for the first time since 2024. And of course it'll be the first opportunity for this combination to go there as well. They rode at the Europeans together last year, and this is Hexagon's luxurious NOBT. And the 10-year-old Dutch gelding that she's been producing up through the levels, and has now built this lovely relationship by Johnson Tien out of a San Remo mare. Their Grand Prix best came in Lyon on the World Cup circuit earlier this season, when they picked up that score of 71.565%. They ended up 5th in the freestyle there. We also saw them in Amsterdam more recently. And saw just before she came in a little bit of tension coming into the warm-up around the outside of the arena, and I think that's just carried over slightly into some of these early movements. Just getting a little bit tight in front. Just needs to ensure they keep nice and parallel to the side of the arena. Showing a good halt. The PF again, just perhaps showing a little bit of tension. Just like to see a little bit more air, a little bit more in terms of swing in the passage. This test is improving a little bit more and a little bit more with each movement. Maybe though, as I say that, maybe it was just a little bit late coming get through the transition into the canter. well executed through the tempi changes. Though again, the frame just looks a little bit tighter than we've seen at some points. Just a little bit again of sort of apprehension coming out of the pirouette. So important to keep that fluency through the movement coming out. They're nice and small though. This test has definitely got stronger as it's unfolded. And Luxuria's relaxing more and more. It's just getting into their stride. One of the Dutch riders that will be hoping for a big set of points tomorrow, but hopefully hopeful of a big finish and score today. Certainly looked like they were heading towards a score of over 70% from the way that was trending along for Thamar Zweistra and Hexagon's Luxuria's NOPT. It's a horse that has filled beginning, looked as she was trying to contain that. Ultimately just brought a little bit of tension, just didn't help with the fluency, and things just looked a little bit tight. But then as they went through the test, sort of after the walk really, it did look like things began to relax a little bit more. And as much as, again, you always can look to score more, but I think things began to improve. And you know, certainly in the Piaf and Passage is more than capable. And there's the score, 70.348%. 8 for Thamar Zweistra to go into third as the best of the Dutch riders so far. Charlotte Rogerson still leading from Verwimp, but Thamar now the third score up there as well. More chances to come for the Netherlands. They do still have another rider to come. We've still got one for the Netherlands. We've got 3 for Belgium. And we've also got 3 for Germany left in the draw. And here is the first of those riders for Germany, the young star of German dressage, Moritz, Treffinger and K&auml. He's took the gold at the... He's one of those, actually, that will be looking tomorrow to perhaps try and push their way onto a score that might just squeeze them up into the top 10, maybe. I mean, they're sitting in 13th place at the moment on the overall standings. As I say, he's a young star. He's only 22, and with this ride, K&auml, he has found himself quite some partner. Youth performances, including that medal-winning performance last summer, has been outstanding. This Hanoverian stallion, now 16 by Chris 3, out of a De Niro mare. Their best Grand Prix score, 73.025%. You can see the low score, unfortunately, at the beginning would have been down to the fact that he probably wasn't stood as clearly in the halt for long enough as was really needed. But he's settled straight away into the test, but he's going to have to work that score back up again. He's had a busy run of shows as well over the World Cup circuit, but we haven't seen this horse since London. But alongside this, he also has a horse called Theodora. Theodora we saw in Amsterdam and in Neumünster. Just to make sure they keep that engagement in the passage. And just allowing the PF. Things just would be nice if it just looked a little bit lighter in front and just allowed K&auml to take the weight a little bit more. Keep that engagement from behind to the front. I have a feeling the extended walk will let them down. Wouldn't necessarily believe it was the clearest of rhythms and just seemed to be avoiding the contact. And again, in the collected walk, just wants to be clearer. Doing a good job. And certainly scoring better now in the counter work. You need to be so precise. They look good coming down that centre line. Really accurate with his placings and positioning in the half passes. Sadly, though, the mistake creeps in, and again, it's such a big hit on the marks when you have a few mistakes like that in the tempi changes. With the balance coming out of the pirouette, can get better then to the right than perhaps the left. It's a shame today. He's such a talented jockey, and with that partner K&auml, he's shown to what a high level they can together reach. Today, sadly, that level hasn't quite been achieved in terms of what we know they can do. The obvious mistake came with the one-time tempi changes where things seem to sort of undo on them, but again in the walk they really were out of rhythm, and today overall for the whole test it just hasn't quite clicked. But there's your score, 67.783%. He's smiling. And the horse is full of expression, lovely to watch. Certainly once they'd got into the counter work, things improved in terms of the marks as well. But there were, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, it just never quite settled in a straight line on the level all the way through. So 67.783 goes into 7th place. He'll be hoping to come back and bounce back tomorrow. Well, we move on at pace because it is now the turn of Germany's next to go. Svenja Kampermeijer. Germany here with, this is Amayara F, or Amayara MFRH. They did indeed win that Grand Prix in Fulsterbo last summer, 69.609 to win the Grand Prix, but of course they've bettered that since with the Grand Prix performance, most recently taking them into the top 4 on the World Cup circuit in Basel when they scored 70.304. The best ever Grand Prix result for these two, though, is a 72.196. Svenja, tremendously experienced rider, been part of the sport ever since coming through from the sort of youth categories many, many years ago. But it's got a lovely partner with this mare. She's a Hanoverian mare. She's 13. She's by mper out of a Dauvignon mare. Floating beautifully through that extended trot. Really nice. This horse has a beautifully gentle step. Really, you can, to me, looks really soft and elastic in the way that Amayara sort of floats across the floor. Unfortunately, I think that sort of moment of canter back at the start of the pass, the half pass to the left, will have inevitably dented the score and just didn't maybe look as light-footed through the rein back as they had done earlier, but again just has such an ability in that extended movement. Shows good power, good freedom through the shoulders as well. Just needs to be careful they don't allow it to hurry too much. Again, just like to see the frame open up a little bit more, allow for a little bit more ground cover and stretch, but it was just verged on being a little bit perhaps hurried again in that extended walk. can see that this horse has a wonderful ability in the Piaffe and Passage. It has the ability and the sort of elasticity to put together, I think, even better scores. Doing a good job through that line of two-time changes. Again, very well placed and fluent through the half passes. Nicely done through the one-time change. It's so important though to just try and stay as straight as possible when you're doing that line. Certainly improving from one pirouette to the next. It's the first time, I think, again, just wanted a little bit more lift and ability to show that they are taking that weight behind. I think the second one was very well controlled, stayed nice and centered. Be very happy with that. Well done to Sven de Kampenmeijer for Germany with Amayara MFRH. There was some really beautiful moments in that test, and as I said at the beginning, I mean, it just looks so beautifully light-footed in the way that Amayara is able just to sort of float across the arena. She's a beautiful mare, and you can see putting a big smile on the rider's face as well, and just looked really consistent. I think at one or two moments perhaps just looked a little bit hurried, but I think there's so much to be able, if you can deliver what they did, which I think is the sort of correct, precise riding of a test that was in harmony, you're always going to be able to sort of push your score over 70%, and that they've done today. They're only 1% or so off their best previous or best ever score, so 70.848, good enough to go into second place for the German partnership there. I mean, it still shows the outstanding score that came from Charlotte Rogerson earlier on with Bonnevier de la Vie, because she's still leading the way. The young Swiss rider that went so well in Basel is still on top at the moment here in the Netherlands, but we are still to see one or two of the bigger names in the sport. We are a long way from the finish, really. There's so many here today, it's fabulous. Well, the next 6 miles away, it is therefore Switzerland, Germany and Belgium, the 1, 2, 3 in terms of nations. Belgium have another go now with this partnership, because it's the turn of Alexa Fairchild, and she is another that tomorrow will hope for a decent helping of points, and actually one of those best to really push for a top 10 slot and a qualification to the World Cup finals. Alexa with fair play. This gelding by Gigliato is out of an IPS crack C mare. Fair play most recently in action just a week or so ago in Lier. Went there after, of course, Neumünster. They've had quite a sort of busy few weeks, really. They scored 70.696 in Neumünster. They also then went on and scored 70.761 in the 4-star in Lier. We also saw them in Stuttgart. Of course, she also has another horse called Malma's Scala's Harame, who's been gradually coming up through the ranks as well, and it's another to sort of pay note to in the future. It's a shame from the very start how, well, there wasn't really a halt, so again you're always working backwards to try and push the score when you take that sort of early hit. Just needs to keep the energy now. Need to be able to just keep the contact through the rein back and then into that collected trot. Watching the sort of coming out of the PF into the fluent, and sometimes just losing a little bit of the balance on the way out. Again, I think the judges will want more sort of suppleness, stretching and relaxation demonstrated in the extended walk. A little bit almost sort of rushed through the collected walk. Just became a little bit hurried. Keeping nice and relaxed now in the canter work. Nice change at the end of that extended line. This looks like the peak of her cap is over her eyes. I know it isn't. Just tightening up a little bit in front towards the end of that line. Just like to that is it's a shame at the mistakes in the one-time tempi change line. That's how I could just do with seeing just a little bit more relaxation. Just every now and then, just gets a little bit too tight in front. Consistent through the pirouettes, maybe just a little bit large on that second one. Alexa Fairchild and Fair Play. Again, just struggling a little bit with the halt, both ends of the test, unfortunately, and it counts as certainly in terms of marks. It's just those little moments that chip away. Of course, slightly bigger moment came in the one-time changes with the mistakes there, and but apart from that, it was relatively a free and elegant test. Alexa and Fair Play now with plenty of experience, and you could see, despite the atmosphere and all that there is to see around this arena, especially when one of the arena team walks in to do a little bit of pooper scooping, that they know how to work together. Just always just look that little bit tighter in front than I think I've seen with some of them today, and you can certainly, like for instance, like the PF and Passage, it's a horse that knows what to do. Fair Play has got plenty of talent. That gelding, but like that halt at the end, at each end of the test, to me is, that's the bit that's really hit them. And then, of course, the changes as well. So the score, 67.761, goes into 9th place. And into 9th on that score, which, as we see, is just ahead of Dominique, Filion, just behind Moritz, Treffinger. So still leading, Charlotte Rogerson. Now to what actually is the last opportunity for the Dutch today. It's the first of 5 to go. But of those 5, 2 for Belgium, 1 for Great Britain, 1 for Germany. And this partnership for the Netherlands, it is Marieke van der Putten, one of the bigger names in Dutch dressage, and a rider that's looking to get back to the World Cup final. First time since 2023, when she finished in 8th in the Grand Prix in Omaha. She's in a great position as well, having had an amazing season. She's currently sitting 7th on the Western European League. And tomorrow, therefore, will be a defining day in terms of looking for that qualification. She obviously has some amazing members in her team, but this Zantana RS2OLD is certainly a standout start. The 12-year-old mare, Oldenburg mare by Zonic, who we will, of course, see a little bit later on, is out of a S&auml mare. Marieka's ride at the Europeans as part of the Dutch team last year. They finished 5th in the freestyle in Mechelen and in Amsterdam, already on the circuit this season. Together they have the best Grand Prix from Amsterdam this year, where they set themselves as a new personal best of 74.826%. Oh, the entry mark, inevitably a difficult mark when you have that little bit of tension in the hole. Again, you saw that in the extended trot, but certainly settling into a lovely half pass there to the right, really elegantly performed. They did a really, this is a horse that just dancing around this arena so elegantly. Beautiful passage into a really nice piaffe. Off the back, of course, of that extended trot that was very, very good. And of course, this test always pushed. She needs to stay nice and relaxed like they have so far. Certainly one of the better extended walks we've seen today. Perhaps just a little bit of tension at the start of the original passage there, maybe just making things just a bit more difficult for Marieke than the first we saw, and then you see that little issue coming through the transition into the canter. That mistake, it just wasn't clear enough, the transition wasn't fluent enough. So important to be precise through these 5 half passes. Very good change. They centered that nicely. Change in the middle at X. Coming into the second of the pirouettes, just don't let it hurry too much, and unfortunately they just had that little sort of one-step change, that tension perhaps just unbalancing things slightly. Lovely final line though, really strengthening, I would think, their scores, because it's a nice transition, kept things well relaxed all the way through to the end, and a really nice halt as well to round things off there from Zantana. RS2, OLD, NOP and Marieke van der Putten were trending towards the top spot at this stage. Of course, though, with 4 combinations still to come, it could, though, certainly put the Netherlands out in front for the moment. It was a shame they had that little sort of change, that little moment in the second of the pirouettes. But, you know, as you go back over that test, there was a little mistake, I think, in one of the transitions, wasn't there? That but there weren't many others. There was a lot of quality involved in that. I mean, it really was a lovely test, and it is just those few mistakes, which I think, you know, ultimately come from relaxation, a little bit more relaxation, even higher scores, but that is still the highest score so far today. Very consistent march from the judges, 74.609%, and we have a new leader. So well done to Marieke van der Putten. Lovely horse, lovely partnership, and together, you know, she's a mare that really, again, just enjoys dancing out there. You can see it in her. So, yeah, it'll be an important day tomorrow for Marieke. She's sitting, you know, she'll want to finish as high as she can tomorrow, put herself in a good place to make sure she's safe and sound in terms of the qualifying spots. Well, this lady is certainly safe and sound because she's on top of the Western European League with 1 leg to go this year. Of course, it's the world number 6, Larissa Pauluis, today with Flambeau, who she won in Neumünster with, having finished second in the Grand Prix. She went on to win the freestyle, and it took the Grand Prix and the freestyle title as well. It has been an amazing partnership that really have blossomed over the last 12 months, have really just stepped up the gears, and it's been a pleasure to watch. Can they now step up above 74.609%, because that is the current challenge for Flambeau. The 16-year-old Dutch gelding by mper out of a Zilliot mare. Their average Grand Prix score is 71.6, but their best Grand Prix score, which did come in Neumünster just a few weeks ago, is a 74.196. They would have to better their best from Neumünster to get ahead of Marieke van der Putten. Just been a little bit conservative at the start of this test. Again, just didn't look as steady and as clean as I think overall you would have wanted to. They were also a little bit early in the hole. Keep that balanced and fluency and keep that energy in the passage. I think, as always, in the extended walk, we could see more in terms of the sort of stretch over the top line. Doing a really nice collected walk, good transition, then into the passage. Trending that couple of percentage marks lower than they delivered in the Grand Prix in Neumünster last month. And again, you saw that tension just creep in the canter transition. Just needs to keep that control, but doing a really nice line of two time changes. Nicely done over the diagonal. just losing a little bit of the rhythm and the sort of just lost a little bit of energy coming out of the pirouette. It was a nice change. So important to be able to keep that fluency coming through from the pirouette into the canter, keep and show that balance. Tomorrow will be a big day for those two as they try to lock down the top spot on the Western European League. Larissa Pauluis, with those 2 wins already this year with Flambeau, will be looking for the hat-trick, but she will not be the only one on the Western European League. As ever, they bring together a fine performance. They were trending high towards the 72.8 sort of area, looking at those final scores. I think we'll see in a moment the marks come through. And we know, the horse is filled with talent. The rider smiling away. Larissa's got a lovely relationship with her rides. Just occasionally today maybe didn't look as supple as I've seen in the past, but still even then picks up a 72.892% score and goes into second place. So great news for Larissa, second in the Grand Prix so far with, 3 more left to go. But it is Marieke van der Putten that still leads on Zantana RS2 OLDNOP. It's not a massive amount between them. Charlotte Rogerson, the Swiss rider, is currently sitting in third. But quality of the final 3 is something to see. And we in a moment turn to the world number 3. Here they are, looking, of course, tomorrow for their 3rd win here. They won the freestyle in 2023. They won the freestyle here last year. And of course, that then sent them to Basel and the win in the FEI Dressage World Cup final, which was a special moment for a combination that have already, and of course still are, the reigning world champions and will be at least until we all head to Aachen come the summer. They've had quite a run, of course, as the defending champions. They don't feature within the overall point standing of the World Cup League for the Western European League. But for those of you that have been following, you'll be well aware of what they've already achieved with the win in both the Grand Prix and the freestyle in both London and in Amsterdam. Very consistent as well in those 2 recent outings. They scored 80.783 in London and 80 exactly in Amsterdam in the Grand Prix test. Of course, the very best score they ever picked up in a Grand Prix was an 81.258. This is Lottie Fry, and of course with her Star Stallion by Lord Leatherdale out of a Negro mare, now 15 years of age, this Dutch stallion of hers and the Van Olst's Glamourdale. Been a brilliant start. So good. He just has this wonderful way of being able to glide across the arena in the extended trots, and you see that uphill, that power comes from behind, lifting the front, really makes him so light in front. Might just want it to be a little bit more even in the pier. Really nicely delivered and ridden. Transition then into the passage. Just needs to keep that energy in the piaffe. Just didn't seem to be as consistent. She's got this now into the canter work. Not sure how you ride better changes for the 2 times, but it is the canter work is where this just becomes a shining example of everything that we enjoy in this elegant sport. Maybe just wanted to be a little bit more precise in the rhythm of the change at K. Ooh. You could just see how that was beginning to become a little bit difficult. The tension started to creep in, and unfortunately just a little bit of a loss of balance. Very, very unusual. And it's a shame as well, because their score was had just started to push past that sort of 80% mark, and of course it takes that hit in the pirouette. It is a double mark. Lottie won't be phased, she'll continue. from the current holder of the FEI Dressage World Cup title, and of course the winner here in the freestyle last year in Bosch. Heading towards a big score, heading towards a leading score, but not necessarily, of course, heading to the score that was achievable because of that little moment in the pirouette. And knowing that we have the world #1 still to come, it does open the door for Zonic here this afternoon when we come to Zonic and Justin to put themselves on top, perhaps, in this Grand Prix. It'll be enough, you would think, and feel and understand, because, I mean, the highlights are just consistent with those two. I mean, the delivery from horse and rider is just, and it's so good. And once they get into the canter work, you just watch the scores float up with the abilities. It is so nice to see. It was such a shame for the pirouette. Anyway, there's your score, 78.022. 0.22%. So, is it possible to win the Grand Prix on that score? Of course it is, but is enough when you know you've still got the world #1 to come into horses' time? Everything about it was correct. Lovely halt at the end as well. Well done, Lottie. Well done, Glammy. Now, 2 to go. It is Larissa Perez. It is to as JK says, he's third on the standings overall, so it's pretty safe and sound in terms of qualification. He's currently, of course, sat as the world #10 as well. He's 27 years of age. He's from Germany. Raateland has had a rapid rise through the sport. Rode at his first ever World Cup final back in 2024 when we went to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and he took a top 5 finish with his ride on that occasion, Great Escape Camelot. Today, he rides DSP Diodoin, joining us with the ride that took him to 3rd in Basel. Of course, he was 4th with Camelot more recently in Neumünster. This 13-year-old stallion by Dante Weltino out of a S&auml mare. It was a Grand Prix best of 72.13%. That came in Hagen last year, but they've been pretty consistent in Lyon and in Basel, both at times we've seen these two this year, scoring well over 71.5. He's certainly off to an excellent start. Needs to keep that activity. Together a really nice halt there, and actually it's quite a nice rein back. Delivering scores that are putting them well above their averages. Just maybe travelling a little bit through the PF. Be careful of the balance again in the PF. Sometimes just loses that engagement as well in the passage, but taking nothing away from what is a standout display from these two here today. It's a shame in terms of the preparation for that extended line, because it'll affect the overall mark for that line. Of just sort of broke into the trot when they were trying to prepare for the extended canter. It shows you the level to which these two are performing at today, because even though that score is figured in, they're still currently above their PB together. Beautifully done through the extended trot again. It's going to be an important line. What a team those two make. What a delight it is to watch. Raateland and DSP Deroin completing what was certainly, before we lost the marks off the screen, heading towards being a combination best score. I mean, I think it could have well ended up being a personal best score had it not been for that a little moment preparing for the extended canter. But I mean, it was a test that started so strongly and it just kept going. So nice to enjoy and watch. And you know, that you might want to say that the Piaf was maybe just could be a little bit. That is a team. They were working together, and together they have indeed delivered a combination best score, 72.826%. That is such tremendous news for them both. And look at the smile, so he should. That is really great. You can see he's got a really nice feel as well, and he's able to just put together a beautiful tempo that really works for De Doorn as well, and it delivers for the pair of them.
Lottie aan de leiding met Glamourdale. Binnenkomt, dames en heren, de Europees kampioen. Vorig jaar was hij nog derde in de eindstand uiteindelijk. En waar hij komt, daar wint hij ook staat in de West-Europese Liga op een 5e plaats met 54 punten. Overwinningen waren er onder meer in Frankfurt, in Lyon. De Europese kampioen Justin Verbomen voor België met Zonic Plus.
Well,
Zonic NOP en
as things currently stand, as we are fully aware, the leader is Lottie Fry and Glamourdale on a score of 78.022%. But we know the door was perhaps left ever so slightly open, and if there was one combination that could look to try and push through, it is certainly these two. Of course, Justin was beaten by Lottie, but not with this ride. We haven't seen on the World Cup circuit Zonic versus Glamourdale, I don't think, yet this year. He won in Frankfurt at the big CDI Firestar. He won in Lyon. He is the world #1, the European champion, and the horse and rider combination of the moment. A partnership that together in the Grand Prix in Frankfurt, where they set PBs in both Grand Prix and Freestyle. 1.587%. They're last to go in this Grand Prix. It is Justin Verwimp. And of course, this is Zonic Plus. Beautifully balanced, lovely open frame through that extended trot. There's a nice halt, maybe just a little bit hurried in the rein back. Invisible communication, seamless transitions. Perhaps could have been a little bit fluent coming into this Passage Piaf line, but I mean, look at that for a Piaf. Just looked to be a little bit offline coming through those two-time changes. Just a little bit of tension just crept in slightly in the middle, although I don't think there was any mistake in there. Again, just, you see it there, just that little bit of tension just creeping in. And that is certainly making things awfully close between Justin and Lottie for who's going to win this Grand Prix. It's just not as things stand, but they're still scoring strongly, just not as strongly as I think they need. If that wasn't one of not the best pirouettes of the day, what was? This is nip and tuck, isn't it, between them both? Lottie's score 78.022. It is going to come down to this centre line. Unfortunately, the trot, well, they had that late transition. Score's going to go up, but is it going to go up enough? This really is going to come down to the final halt between Justin and Zonic versus Lottie and Glamourdale. Relief, yes, it is done. And perhaps looking at the score, it is the result that he was looking for. What a performance. It was so tense. This is a sport that rewards perfection. This is a sport that rewards you getting everything right. And of course, when the scores get given out, it punishes you when you don't. And neither Justin and Zonic nor Lottie and Glamourdale could deliver complete perfection. Perfection from them both. But today it really did ebb and flow through that grass. But when it comes down to it, there is but one winner. And with that final line, we'll have to wait for the official score to come in. I don't want to call it because it's just so close. I think Lottie knows, perhaps we will see. 78.022 to remind you was Lottie's score. Justin Verwimp and Zonic Plus, the European champions, have taken to the top here with a score of 78.457% to win as the last down the centre line. Congratulations, Justin, and thank you for creating such tension. Such tension. I love sport when it is ridden to perfection, but I love sport when you get tension, and today that's what we had. It was up and down between them both. But, I mean, there were moments in there. That final centre line of Piaf and Passage has really beautifully delivered it for them. I mean, one of the pirouettes there, that, I mean, was just everything you're looking for, surely. Zonic Plus wins the Grand Prix. But, of course, tomorrow is what really counts. Tomorrow, we see Zonic versus Glamourdel. Ahead of Lottie, Fry and Glamourdel. Look how tight it was, less than 0.5%. Well done to Marieke van der Putten and Zantana S&auml to join in with the podium celebrations there in third. Larissa Pauluis and Flambeau, and Livanos with DSP Diradoin ahead of Charlotte Rogerson, who rode brilliantly the Swiss rider once more with Donner de la Vie. That's your top 6. And of course, it's been a field of 18 different combinations today. It's been quite something to follow and enjoy. And we're going to set things up for the presentations. Well, stay with us live here across FEI TV for the presentation of awards. And don't forget as well, it's tomorrow, the final leg of the Western European League. And of course, the Freestar here on Saturday gets underway at 2 p.m. local time, Central European time here at Indoor Brabant, the Dutch Masters, as is well known. And it'll be a packed house, I do not doubt for that. It's going to be fascinating to see who wins it. And as today has proven, I think it's pretty impossible to call, quite frankly, as to who will come out on top tomorrow. Certainly seen one or two today performing above the average, and one or two that maybe would have hoped for a little bit more. It's been a tremendous afternoon of sport once more. What a World Cup season and what a World Cup final we're heading towards next month as we turn, of course, to Fort Worth and to Texas in the United States for the final of the FEI Dressage World Cup. Will Lottie Fry be able to defend the title on Glamourdel? Will Zonic and Justin be able to dance their way to the top, or could it come from somebody else? We will see. As I say, don't forget the likes of Larissa Pauluis and Flambeau competing here tomorrow, already two-time winners this year on the World Cup circuit. Isabel's not here this week, and she herself as well has had back-to-back wins earlier this year with those great results, and was looking quite good last week in Herning as well with Wendy. So there's a lot of top-class talent in the dressage field that will eventually qualify to go to those finals. But in a moment, we will welcome them back for the presentations, the lap of honour, of course, first and foremost, for 8th through to 4th, and then we'll welcome in the top 3 if everything runs like it normally does. The lights dimmed as out the back everybody's just getting dressed and ready for the presentation of awards. I think we're edging ever closer to that though.
En we gaan ze zo dadelijk hier binnenhalen. De beste 8 van vandaag. Morgen natuurlijk de kuur op muziek waar de punten nog weer vergaard kunnen worden. Op weg naar de wereldbekerfinale in Texas volgende maand in april. En u ziet op het Rolex scorebord de top 5 weergegeven. Prachtige overwinning voor Justin van Bomen en Zonic Plus. Met heel dicht daarachter Lottie Fry en Glamourdel. De Europese kampioen dus op plaats nummer 1. De wereldkampioenen op een tweede plaats.
Trying to look when the World Cup final gets underway, because of course typically I didn't pull that date up in front of me when I wrote my notes out earlier.
Het doel uitzonderlijk te presteren in sport en fokkerij, waarbij respect voor paarden en mensen centraal blijven staan.
Fort Worth, Texas, 8th to the 12th of April. So it's not that far off at all, is it? It's less than a month. It's only a few weeks away. And we'll be focused there. And of course, you can watch all of the action from Fort Worth live here on FEI TV.
Dan sterf hier in ons midden Mr. Ronan Murphy, FEI Dressage Director. Voorzitter van de jury uit Zweden, Magnus Ringmark. En de voorzitter van de Dutch Masters, Ankie van Gunsven, gaan hulde brengen.
Well, the presentation party are just gathering, and I can see we have horses heading our way. Going to start in 8th place, and he today has set a new personal best score. It was quite something, 70.587%. Verwimp and Jedi de Massa for Belgium, finishing here in 8th place. Congratulations, Vim. Ever improving with Jedi. Germany's Dr. Senja Kampermeier, Aminiara MRFH, 70.848%. Finishing there in 7th place, one of Germany's combinations. He ended up with 2 in the top 7, of course. Hugely impressive performance from Charlotte Rogerson once again. She, with Bonheur de la Vie, although she may not be in a position to get to the World Cup finals this time round, it's certainly a combination that are filled with ability, and I'm sure will continue. It'd be great to watch them in the freestyle tomorrow. Well done, the Swiss rider, certainly pushing Swiss dressage forward. A fine performance from the rider that finished in 5th, who is just making his way into the arena. Look at this, I love this bit, but showing off. Well, I thought we were going to see Raateland next. Here he is. I think it just took a minute to get in the arena. DSP done the combination best score as well. I mean, what a way to put yourself in a good place going into tomorrow. I mean, he's currently sitting in 3rd on the Western European League. He certainly looks like he's in a great place to go to Fort Worth. And that'll have set him up rather nicely. 72.826, the score today. And, well, whether she stays on top of the World Cup standings will come down to tomorrow. Because let's think about it and think, well, the way the points are stacked up, I mean, Rafael could jump up tomorrow in terms of the overall, but we'll see. It's going to be pretty tight. But she's in 4th place today. 72.892 was the final score for Flambeau and Larissa Pauluis. Well, as she takes her leave, we will be set then to welcome forward the 1, 2, 3.
Prachtige scores. Voor de nummer 3, 74,609. Voor de nummer 2, 78,022. Voor de nummer 1, percentage van 78,457. Gaan binnenkomen. Ieder moment kan het zover zijn.
I think without doubt today, I think I can actually say is perhaps the most tense final line over who's going to win a class that I've seen. Because you often, I mean, you see the training scores, you watch the performances, and then you sort of get a good feel for where things are by that point. There was no way really of knowing with the way the score was going into that final line as to who was going to end up on top. But when it came to it, it was these two. Will it be the same tomorrow? You'll have to tune in to find. And the world number 1 is on top here at the Dutch Masters, the Indo-Brabant Horse Show, the FEI Dressage World Cup Grand Prix winner for the Dutch Masters. It is Justin Verbumen and Zonic Plus ahead of Lottie Fry and Glamourdale. It is Belgium, Great Britain, and tremendous to see in third, the best for the Dutch, Marieke van der Putten and Zantana RS2 OLD NOP. Very, very well done indeed. It's been quite a day. I'm looking forward to tomorrow already. As Zonic steps forward. Their first international outing of the year. It is now time for presentations in a moment, but before that, it will of course be the national anthem for our winning nation. It is Belgium. Standing in the spotlight today. Will they be standing in the spotlight tomorrow as well? 2 p.m. we begin that journey. This is one of those events, one of those, I mean, we've sort of been having dressage here since the 80s at the Dutch Masters. It's one of the most historical events on the calendar. And that therefore means that over the years it's seen some of the most prolific and greatest dressage horses go on to win the freestyle title here. And you know, is, by the way, our president of the grand jury stepping in to present and congratulate Marcus Ringmark, the Swedish judge. But as I was saying, some of the big names have won it, and of course Ankie van Goorselen has been, she had 8 freestyle victories here. Oh, talking of which, it was almost as if I knew what was going to happen. With Bonfire and Salerno, she, for pretty much over a decade, the Dutch Masters really did belong to Ankie. You know, first with Bonfire, later with Salerno. It really was one of the defining eras of freestyle riding. And I mean, and of course in the sport of dressage herself in her incredible career. Of course, the likes of other Dutch stars, Anderlina Carl-Nelson, with Gerrit Parseval was dominant here in the early 2010s. Glamourdale more recently has had that run of the 2 wins, but doesn't mean it'll be the same. Well done, Lottie. Can she make it 3 wins with Glamourdale? Really has been a wonderful sight to see that sort of explosive power, constant scores up at the 90% end of the spectrum. But we've got 2 of them here. Well done. And of course, it's a Dutch horse. But there is a Dutch rider that finished in 3rd. Tremendous to see as well. Marieke van der Putten. Well done. With Zantana RS2 NOP. Een van hun paarden hier in de top van de Wereldbeker. Vandaag de Grand Prix. Last Dutch rider to win the freestyle, I think, was 2016 with Hans Peter and Glocks Flirt.
En de dochter van Dominique hier bij de top 3. Dat is dan ook weer uniek.
Well, tomorrow is one not to be missed. Let's keep it simple. It's Zonic Plus versus Glamourdale at the Dutch Masters. If that isn't worth tuning in for in dressage, nothing is. Lottie, Fry and Glamourdale, though, today have been pipped to the post. It went down to the centre line to see the win go the way of the world #1 and the European champion. Congratulations to Justin Verwimp and Zonic Plus. Whatever you do, tomorrow from 2, join in and tune in to FEI TV. This is something that we've all wanted. It is Zonic versus Glamourdale in the freestyle, and it's live for you here on FEI TV at 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Enjoy this presentation, and just remember, this is just the warm-up. Tomorrow it is freestyle, and it's the final leg of the Western European League. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you'll join me once more. From me, Gareth Jenkins, until later, take care.
Thank you to Lottie, Fry and Marieke van der Putten taking 2nd and 3rd here today. And we'll see this whole group of 5 go as the final group tomorrow in the freestyle to music.
Kippenvel. Wat een mooie prestatie. Zonic plus.